Welcome to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast. My name is Mahou Shoujo M from Daily Kodocha.
And my name is That Kodocha Girl from my YouTube channel, That Kodocha Girl.
And we are going to be talking about episode 6 today.
Yes, one of my favorites.
I can't remember the Japanese title for it. For the episode.
I remember looking at it
about
today.
Like Oyakodon Baka's like gross something crazy Stew family crisis.
Yeah, on the Blu-ray it had a different name than usual. It was like a direct English translation of the Japanese title, like chicken and something
chicken
gone
and egg
wrong.
Dum Dum. Yeah, chicken and egg Dum Dum family, like I don't want to eat you or something like that.
Yeah, it was kind of a rough translation.
I have thoughts with a capital T on Oyakodon Baka versus chicken
Crazy
and egg Dum
Stew
Dums
family
versus Crazy Stew family crisis that I will save my rant for once we get a little bit further into the episode. Yeah, so I love, like, so just some context for listeners. We've kind of decided, rather than going like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are going to be speaking primarily on just like meaningful episodes or like notable episodes and chapters in the series, because unfortunately it's not a one-to-one chapter and episode.
Oh, totally. And I think it'll be more interesting for the audience too. I think, well, what episode are they going to cover next time,
Exactly. So yeah, so episode 6. So I watched the Japanese version and then I watched the English version.
I did the complete opposite. I watched English
first,
Japanese.
I always feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I can pick up on changes more if I watch the Japanese first. But that's
same here. I mean, I have only watched the Japanese version once, so like, you're not really thinking about the differences when you're watching it. You're just watching it to enjoy it. But watching it back to back, I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that I realized, which I'll get into, further along we get into the conversation today, that there are scenes in there that have different context because of just a subtle thing that a character says. And I'm super excited to talk about that today because it really, I don't know, it actually changed the way I viewed Akito, actually, of all the characters. There were some things that he said that was different in the Japanese version that I thought gave a lot more depth to his character.
Oh, can I guess which line it is? And see if I wrote down the same thing to talk about?
Of course.
Okay. Was it I myself hate the way I am?
Exactly. Yes. Oh my god. Yeah.
I picked up on that because that line has been something that's just like consistently broken my heart every time I hear it over a period of years. And what did they change it to in the English version?
He talks about how just the way that he thinks is negative because Tsuyoshi was like calling him out and saying like, why can't you see that Sana's trying to help you? And I also noticed when Tsuyoshi was commenting on his response to Sana's movie, Tsuyoshi was more like because he's in love with Sana in the beginning before he gets with Aya, and he was more like saying like, oh, Sana works so hard on her movie, you should appreciate it. But in the English version, he says, she's doing this for you, man. But in the Japanese, Tsuyoshi, I feel like he said it in a way that was more reflective of his own self-interest at that point.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's kind of made me really more curious about some of those sub versus dub shifts, if they downplay Tsuyoshi's interest in Sana, because it really is like taken care of, swept under the rug somewhat quickly, I feel like, over the grand scheme of the show, like because he gets with Aya fairly soon, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, I did an analysis video of his character, and I think that's just kind of how he is. Like, he moves on pretty fast because he just really wants, he wants somebody to be with him because, he has all this stuff going on at home. And, some people are just like that. They move on pretty fast. And I think that's just his nature.
Sweet Tsuyoshi. Yeah.
I also noticed in the Japanese version, like during that scene when, Sana runs up to him and scares him after he finishes singing that song.
Mhm.
And I don't think she said this in the English version, but he was like saying how she was being scary, and she says, "Who am I, Jason?" And I think she was referring to like Jason, the scary
Mhm.
guy with the mask, which I thought was interesting, that they, said that in the Japanese version, since, Jason's I think he was created by American Hollywood, but I thought that was interesting.
He was, but I think that there is some it's not the first time he's brought up in anime, and certainly not in actually not even in this anime. I don't know if you remember, it's probably episode 3 or 4, whichever one. Sana's trying to find Akito's
His weakness.
Jason, Dracula, anatomy model.
Yep.
So I find that really interesting. But no, I don't know. I don't really I personally cannot do horror movies, so I don't know what the reception for them is like in other countries, because I don't watch them myself.
Oh,
Poisonally.
I like ghosts and like paranormal scary, but I don't like the Jason kind where they're, slasher
Hack and
kind,
slash.
Freddy Krueger. Yeah, I'm not into that.
Oh man, I respect it. I just can't. It's one of those things where like if I'm going to watch a scary movie, it has to be at like 11 a.m. noon so that I have time to get over it before I go to sleep that night.
I think it didn't help that my mom, she's really into that stuff. And I mean, she showed it to me from a young age. And like the first thing that really traumatized me was she showed me the movie Pet Cemetery about, it's
Right, that's a
Stephen King.
Yeah.
And the pets come back to life and like, kill people. And that traumatized me so much. Actually, it wasn't the pets coming back to life and hurting people. It was there's a part in that movie with like a creepy sister, and like she's like got issues, and they lock her in a room, and like she's just really creepy looking, and she acts really creepy. And there's like this part where she runs towards the camera real fast.
Ooh, yep, nope, can't do it. But more power to you.
Yeah, but I will say that probably helped me like not get scared by things like that is my mom. Thanks, That's Mom, fair. If you're listening.
Yeah, good job, Mom. Yeah, my parents did not do that, so I got nothing except for fear. And I think I was in college. We were watching something kind of scary, and it was a little bit late at night, and my poor roommate went around, turned on all of the lights in the apartment, like opened the shower curtain, opened all the closet doors so that I could and I went to bed with the lights on that night. Can't do it.
I don't blame you.
but yes, that Jason reference is really funny. A funny thing to pick up on. I'm curious about that.
So another thing that I noticed that was different, which I actually thought was better handled in the English version, was there's a part where Sana comes home and she's talking to Misako's publisher, or I always forget his name.
Anda,
yes. And he says something like, Misako's working on her script because she's 3 days late. But in the English version, she has, that waterfall on her head.
Yeah.
And he says like something to the effect of like, oh, she's trying to get her ideas flowing.
Yes, I picked up on that too. I thought that was a funny shift.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with that in the dub.
I like that. That was a good one. I think, is it after that scene that Sana goes down to the studio to begin working on the movie? I think.
Yes, and we're introduced to Asako Kurumi.
Yes, I got a plot thing I gotta mention. Like Ray had to know Asako was in this, right? Like when he like got Sana signed up for it. Like when she got cast in it, like there's no way he didn't know. And if he really wanted to avoid her that badly, I think he probably would have directed Sana to not take that role, right? Maybe? What do you think?
I disagree, because when you think about, further along in the series, how, Ray was found basically abandoned. He was homeless by Sana, and he talks about, you know, with Akito and Tsuyoshi during that one scene and a few episodes after this one, how he basically lives for her. You know, he doesn't really I feel like he doesn't really live for his own needs at that point in the story, you know, because he owed so much to Sana, and I feel like he would do anything for her. And it's possible, you know, Sana really wanted to do the role. And I don't think Ray is the kind of person who has the heart to let the people he loves, to let them down, I guess.
No, I like that thought. That's a good looking into it a little deeper. I don't have any disagreements there. So
but I see what you're saying. Like I could see Ray like pushing Sana to be like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea, but you know, Sana like having a meltdown and be like, I want it.
Yeah.
And he just caves because he's such a softie.
He really is. He is that for sure. That's something I picked up on in the English version, is while in episode 1 we were not saying the pimp word, this episode we're cool with it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I just got questions, like, you know, did they just get tired of trying to censor it, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, like the first time I watched the series I didn't pick up on that, but like the second time I did, I was like, why does, you know, because the English or the Japanese title of the first episode is like, I'm 11 years old with a pimp or whatever.
Yeah.
And it like, then all of a sudden we start to say it. And I noticed that second time I watched it, I think, and I was like, I wonder if like they just started doing that and they thought people would get upset, and then like they aired the episodes and we're like, well, nobody is really upset about this, and they just decided to do it. I don't know. I can't think of a good reason why, but it is what it is. I'm glad they did include it eventually because it's hilarious, and I feel like it adds something to, I guess, Sana's ignorance.
Oh, for sure. I'm like, I love our girl, but she's not great at words, phrases, definitions.
But that's part of her charm.
Oh, I completely agree. I wouldn't change her for anything. But I think there's also something kind of you know, like that childish thing where you've like read a word but don't know how it's pronounced, or like you think you understand the context of this but then you find out later that you really don't. Like there's something very relatable about that to me, of her being like, yeah, he's a pimp, and then I think Misako says it in, must be episode 8 or 9, maybe it's next episode, you know, like, do you know what that means?
Right.
Like we've been humoring you for a long time, but like, do you know what that means? So I thought that was really interesting. I love the introduction of Asako, and I also like Lucy Christian, I think, voices her in the Funimation dub, and she's great. And I think it's the first time I've heard her not voice an 11-year-old boy, so that was exciting for me.
Right. She, and this is just me, because I actually don't know this for sure, so you might have to confirm this with me. But you kind of gave it away there, but I'm pretty sure she's the voice of Ash from Pokemon, right?
Veronica Taylor did it.
Oh, you're right. She sounds similar to her to me.
Yeah, I don't know who's been doing it. I know that I want to say in like 2004 or 5, Ash got a new voice actress. I do not have her name committed to memory, but similar energy for sure. She's got that really nice kind of lower vocal quality that, yeah, I think works for, you know, young boys and also beautiful women. So good job, Lucy Christian. And I love Asako. I think she's a great character.
Me too.
Criminally underrated and doesn't get enough airtime in the show.
Oh, definitely.
Even in the manga, just every now and again, Ray's like, don't worry, I still have a girlfriend.
Yeah. She just kind of pops up when Ray's like feeling anxious about something. Like
So I love that. Oh, this is kind of random. A random note. Zenjiro's English voice actor is really growing on me.
It's good.
You know, because I'm definitely like have a preference for the sub over the dub. But I just think that casting was really good. Like he's kind of got the rhythm of Zenjiro and also the like a similar vocal quality too, which I have found really kind of fun in watching the dub version. I'm like, look at you go. You sound just like the guy who was doing it.
Which I think Zenjiro, the actual comedian, did the voice, I believe, in the Japanese version.
I love that. That's excellent. Okay, and I think I'm trying to go somewhat with my notes in the order of like how things happened in the episode, kind of bobbing back and forth between the Japanese and the English. Do you have anything that happens that you want to note on before?
Well, this is a subtle change, and this happens pretty much. I mean, it happens throughout the episode, but it happens pretty much right off the bat when Tsuyoshi's talking to Sana about Akito's mom and his family, and how when Mamie called him a monster, how that triggered him. But they actually, in the Japanese version, he's called the devil child or the devil boy, but in the English version, they just say he's a monster, which is just a very subtle thing, but just something I made note of.
Yeah, I also picked up on that, and I guess I don't have a good, sometimes I wonder about changes that are made because of things like syllables and just trying to get things to fit within the characters, like the amount of time that they have to say the word in English. And I wonder if it has something to do with that, but like devil and monster have similar syllable counts. So I have no idea what the impetus behind that particular change was.
This might be a stretch, but like, if you're bringing it over to Western audiences, which, you know, this doesn't really make any sense, but did they think maybe it was triggering to like a society or countries that are very, you know, Christian leaning? Would that be offensive? I don't know. Like, that was just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it is interesting to me. That's the thing that I keep coming kind of back to, is I'm like, I just wonder if they were to do it again in 2022, like how different would it look, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, you know, based on a lot of the reboots that we're getting from anime that, you know, were made in the 90s and early 2000s, you know, things have gotten a lot more lax, and you know, people are more tolerable of things now, and I think that they would stick closer to the source material. Like, I think we talked about it in episode 1, like episode 1 in a Kodocha reboot probably would be called I'm an 11-year-old with a pimp, and I'm sure people would be upset about it, but people wouldn't, like, I don't think people would try to ban it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's just a thought I keep coming back to as we've been going through this.
Yeah, same here.
A random note for the English version, when Sana is being interviewed, she says her favorite food is cornflakes, not cornflake paste. And to me, that distinction is important, because ground up cornflake paste sounds disgusting.
Yeah. It just makes me think, and I think this happens after this episode, but her breakfast that she makes when she tries to make an American breakfast, and it's just like,
I love it.
A lumpy mess of cornflakes and milk and who knows what else.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love it. And so I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, why wouldn't she just, especially since that is a scene where she makes the cornflakes into a paste later. Like, we have some context for it. It's not like people would be like, what the hell is cornflake paste? Like, I just thought that was an interesting little change. And then I think we also have not our first, but one of our first interactions with Akito's dad.
I love him
forever. Yes, he's last night I was on such a like Fuyuki kick. I was almost tweeted like, he doesn't have a canon birthday, but I would like to celebrate him for a week.
We should do that next week on Twitter.
I might just pick a birthday for him and do a Fuyuki week, because I love him. I can't even explain why. I think it's a combination of, you know, like, Sana-chan, please come visit.
Yeah, and I love his rap song in that one episode.
Yes. I spent an embarrassingly long time looking for that online last night.
It's
I was having a hard time finding it.
It is featured on my channel. You should go check out my video. It's called Kodocha Out of Context. It is featured in that video.
I've watched. Okay, so
check it out.
you're gonna laugh at me so much because I know I knew I'd seen the scene recently, and I'm like, but where did I see it? Was it on Liz's Pinterest? Was it on, one of the Tumblrs that I follow? And I could not place where I had picked up on it or seen it, and it was probably that video of yours that I saw it most recently, and I was just like, where was it? So yes, I will go back and watch that again and find it because I need to watch it. It's important to me.
By the way, when I that video, there's so many scenes in that anime that are like, why did no one make an out of context video for this before? Like, it's like the perfect anime for that.
Oh, 100%. I think you, in some ways, we've answered our own question. Like, the Kodocha fandom is slowly being revitalized, largely through your work, the Kodocha Archives work, Liz's work. But that's why nobody done it before.
Yeah, and it's a shame because like, and I know I'm super biased because we have our own podcast for this after all, but like, come on, it's like one of the best shoujo anime ever, and like, what the heck, guys?
Oh man, I don't disagree. I think there's a great channel called Colleen's Manga Rex, and she
that's funny. I just subscribed to her.
I really love her videos, but she really touches on, I think, just like I think we're about to get very philosophical and we're not be talking about the episode at all. I think within our community, it is more accepted for, women and young girls to watch shonen and shoujo, but it's not accepted for young men to watch shoujo. And I'm glad we have some wonderful gentlemen in our group.
Yes, me too.
Are big Kodocha fans, and I am thankful for them. But it's just not the norm,
Yeah, and I do get it because it's very romance focused, and your main character is a female. But I've shown Kodocha to both my husband and my dad, and they both loved it. They loved the themes in it. So I think because on the surface it looks like this girly, cutesy little anime, and I think that's a turnoff for a lot of guys who are maybe more into shonen. But after showing it to two men in my life who I wouldn't say watch those things regularly, to say that they enjoyed it, I feel like says a lot because they don't typically watch things like that. And I think that really speaks for the quality of that show.
Oh, I completely agree. I think it's, just I think generally the perception of shoujo is a barrier to entry for a large portion of anime fans. And it doesn't help that the industry pretty much caters more to shonen than to shoujo, even in just like what gets licensed in the United States. Even though you can look at sales reports and, shoujo manga series tend to sell much better, and I will leave all that research to Colleen, who has laid it all out very nicely in her videos, but it's interesting. So it's just a barrier to entry, I think.
And one more quick note, this is relevant to Kodocha since this is Obana's other work, Honey Bitter.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the English version of this manga.
I don't think it got licensed over here, did it?
Yeah, and I had been searching for it for a couple of years because I like to have the books. I like to have the physical copy. And I just, every time I find it, it's Japanese, and I don't think there was another language. So I just, was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to go online. And I think the one I'm reading was fan translated, but
Probably.
It's frustrating because all these amazing stories, aren't being told in other languages. And, I feel like I don't know, we just need to push for that more,
Oh, I completely agree. Some of the bigger publishing houses like Viz will publish maybe one shoujo a year for a new license. Seven Seas has been picking up way more licenses for shoujo, and I'm very grateful for that. Kodansha also has been, they're very much holding more of those licenses.
It's
some
been
of the bigger publishing houses for sure.
I've noticed in the last couple of years, it's been slow, but it's happening. The shoujo anime is getting a little bit more mainstream, and I really could tell when I saw that they were redoing Tokyo Mew Mew.
Oh, yes.
and
last
Fruit Basket, which I still need to watch. But like I said, I actually I actually don't watch a lot of anime. I love anime. Like, I feel very passionate about the ones that I have seen. But I just, I don't know why. I guess because I tend to hyperfixate on things, so maybe that's why. But but yeah, I think we're moving in a good direction with shoujo at this point in time. I think people are starting to get more interested in that now. So I think as long as people still, keep talking about it, keep praising it, I think eventually we'll get more of those stories over here in the West.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, Seven Seas will open up a survey every so often, and you can put through requests for things that you would like them to license. And so every time they open that up, I go in and I put in Kodomo no Omocha, I put in Mizu no Yakuta, which is the like the one-shot volume of the movie that Sana and Naozumi make, and I put in Deep Clear and I put in Honey Bitter every time. Yep. So hopefully, with enough people putting through these requests, with enough movement, it'll get, relicensed. That would be the dream. That way I don't have to get excited when I, somebody's like, oh, look, I found volume 9 for $45 at a bookstore in Austin, Texas. Like, that's huge. What wonderful news.
Yeah, I actually got my first 2 Kodocha mangas at a Comic-Con in Kentucky, of all places. And it was volume 4 and 5. I remember that. And 4 was kind of in not great shape, but the pages were okay. It was the cover that was a bit damaged. Yeah. But 5 was in pretty good shape. But that was my first 2 that I got.
I love that. I found volume 8 first. And that, by the way, because I don't think I had never read the manga before I found that volume. So I just cracked us open in the middle of the Akito and Kazuyuki story. And then I had to go back and retrace my steps a little bit, because I think I'd only seen the anime when I found that volume out in the wild. What a place to start.
Right. That's like you telling me last time how you started off seeing the Kiss episode.
I know. That magic number 8, episode 8, volume 8. That was my first exposure continually.
All right, so let's talk about the Crazy Stew family. I know you had opinions.
I do. Well, I just think that there are some things that don't translate into English, and therefore it makes more sense to just leave them in Japanese and educate your population, because it's a pun. Like, Oyako means parent and child. Oyakadan is a chicken and rice dish. So she's trying to say, like, parent and child idiots, but messes it up because it's Sana. And I just don't think that there's a way to translate that appropriately into English, personally. Chicken and egg dum-dums, to me, just doesn't quite capture.
Yeah, it sounds clunky.
It does. And I think, Crazy Stew family rolls off the tongue a little easier. And so, in a crazy change of heart for me, I almost prefer that.
Okay.
To chicken and egg dum dum. But I do wish they just kind of like left it as it was.
Yeah, I think they did in the manga.
They did in the manga.
Yeah.
But my first exposure to this episode was through the fan sub, which left it as it was and had a little note in the corner. So that's also probably where some of my bias comes from. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, I feel the same way. I don't really, honestly, I don't really have a super strong opinion about it. I would have rather had them like say that and then like maybe explain it with a subtitle, but yeah. I don't know. Because they do that in a lot of I talked about Shugo Chara. There were moments in that anime, which that anime, as far as I know, never got an English dub. But there were moments where like the character would say something, and then at the top of the screen it would explain what it means. And I would rather have that, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm totally with you there. I think we're consuming media from a culture that is not American. I think most people know and understand this as they go into it. And so through that, I think it makes more sense to focus on just learning. On that note of that scene, when Sana first goes up to the house and Natsumi answers the door, I thought it was very funny that she, in the Japanese version, was like, is Hayama? And then she's like, oh, you're also Hayama. Is Akito-kun here? And I think that's the first time she refers to him, not to him, but about him by his first name, which I thought was interesting.
I've noticed in the English version, it's very sporadic. Like sometimes she'll say Hayama, sometimes she'll say Akito.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make any sense. It seems like she uses Hayama when she's more angry with him. Yeah. Which I guess I'll have to go back and watch, the whole series again to see, is she always saying it when she's mad? Is that why they did that? Or was it just random? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or was it just an inconsistency? Who's to say? Would love to get like one of the script ADRs from this show alone one day so that we can ask them all of these questions. So yeah, I think we're getting close to the scene where Sana pretends to be Akito's mom.
Yes, and it's such a beautiful scene. I mean, I'm speaking, I think, for all Kodocha fans here, but like that scene is just when it's like Sana's she's so beautiful and amazing, and she treats everyone she knows with kindness, even if they I mean, Akito was not nice to her. Akito choked her. Akito threatened her a few times. I mean, but that scene, it just is like, wow, she's got a big heart. And then that scene also, I mean, you kind of felt sympathetic for Akito before, but at that scene you realize he really needs help.
Yeah, I also find it very interesting too that like, because he does not want to play along. He's sick, and that's why he ends up playing along. And so she kind of repeatedly mentions the photograph as a means to get him to comply. And I just think it's so funny that she ends like he has to be blackmailed into what is going to become a recurring memory for him over the course of both the anime and the manga. Like when he's thinking about Sana, when he's going through tough things, he always comes back to this scene in his memories. Like I was reading through parts of volume 7 yesterday for my writing exercise fan fiction. And that comes up, I think he's like having a nightmare or something, and it turns into a like memory dream of this scene.
Yeah, I've wanted to do, and again, it's really hard for me to like write about one particular scene when creating my videos, but I do have a lot to say. I'm just still trying to figure out, but I want to do a video kind of dissecting that whole dynamic there, because it's very interesting, and it's very, very psychological. And I went to college for psychology, so like I see it everywhere. I can't help it.
Particularly in this series.
Oh yeah, that's another reason why I love it so much. And it's just there's really a lot to unpack with that. And that scene is probably the most important scene in this entire series. I don't care what anyone says. I believe it is. It has to be.
I think I don't feel comfortable completely 100% agreeing with that, but I also don't have an argument for it now. I'm gonna think on it, and we can talk about it another time.
Oh yeah.
I do think it's certainly up there, because I think it shifts something in their relationship that, again, like it shifts something in Akito for the rest of the series. That go on living comment.
Yeah, it's like I feel like that one is the most, I guess, when I say important, because there's a lot of scenes in Kodocha that are important, and honestly it really depends on what I'm thinking about, but I feel like I keep coming back to that one. But I also consider I might have said this last episode, but I consider that ending of the first episode to be one of the most important scenes too, because it shows you that Sana, she's not messing around, and she's a very strong character. She's not going to back down, and I feel like it's very important to set that up for your main character. And so I'd consider that probably the most important scene for Sana. But I feel like this scene is the most important for the relationship between Sana and Akito.
Yeah, I think it certainly sets things in motion. For sure. Especially when you think about like the following episode when he's homesick and he's watching the TV movie and he keeps rewinding her scenes.
You know, I actually didn't get to see that episode the first time I watched because for some reason on YouTube, like that one was missing.
No.
So like I watched it again and I was like, I don't remember that. I was like, oh my gosh, that scene, like it says a lot more, like it puts things more in more context, and you know, because I think I skipped right over to the kissing episode, was like,
oh man,
after that one. So
0 to 60.
I like I figured that, like, you know, yeah, I'm pretty sure Akito has feelings for her now. You can kind of tell at the end of this episode, but like the whole tape thing really solidified that, and I missed it the first time. So the first time I did see it, I was like, okay, now that really, you know, solidifies that whole emotion for him.
Oh yes. Oh man, I could get into this because I really do love this like series of episodes, because you've got this episode and then like the next episode is Sana dealing with her Rei and Asako stuff, and it's Akito coming to terms with his own feelings for Sana, and then obviously like episode 8 is episode 8, and then 9 is kind of like, it's just, yeah, this like 6, 7, 8, 9, it's just like banger after banger after banger in terms of episodes.
I know, it's amazing.
It's so good. One thought on something toward the end of this episode, as Fuyuki Hayama Chichi comes to find Sana and Akito, I think Kodocha has once again done a really excellent use of silence. You know, like we're playing the music and then Akito slaps Fuyuki's hand away and it's just quiet. And I love that as a dramatic device because it really emphasizes that moment, and then Fuyuki apologizing and picking him up, and then they blare "Don't Cry for Me," and I love it so much.
I know. And the way Sana's like looking at him, like
I know, it's just so good. And I know that we were talking about Always Be With You in our last episode. Don't Cry for Me, like the instrumental version of it, might be my favorite instrumental for the show. I just love it. And they used it at the end of this episode, and it was just making me very happy.
Oh yeah, that one's definitely in my top 5 for sure. I don't know which one's probably my favorite. I'd probably say the track that's actually called Hayama and Sana is probably my favorite.
I love that one too. That's my second favorite.
And I just want to say I like it, and I'm pretty sure that this is the one that has it going on in it. But there's certain instruments that they use throughout the anime, and styles, I guess you could say, that they associate with certain characters. Like with Akito, you have whistling. And in Sana, you kind of have that, I don't know what instrument you call it, but like a xylophone, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of that bell chiming sound. And I love how they, in that song, they combine those two sounds. You have to listen to it because I can't really do it right now. But I really like how you have kind of it starting with the Sana sound, and then you have Akito's whistling coming into the song later on. That kind of it mixes it together, so it conveys a message that, okay, they're coming to an understanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Look at you being all a musician. I'm just like, I like this because I like it.
Yeah, I've been given this dreaded gift that I have to break down songs, and in my personal life, you know, I try to break down like music, and my friends are all just like, Ari-chan, like, stop. like it's been 15 minutes, like, let's talk about something else.
Your gift is also your curse.
Exactly.
Tragic. I also love this episode ending with Rei rewinding Asako for the TV movie. But a question I have for Sagami Rei, why he only rewinding the sad part?
Maybe it reminded him of something from his past with her, maybe?
I'm guessing, like, or something, but I'm like, why wouldn't it, like, if it were me, I would rewind the part where she looked beautiful and happy, maybe.
Maybe it was too hard for him to see that because, you know, they're broken up at this point, and maybe seeing him happy would have reminded him of the good times and what he lost,
Maybe. I'm open to that possibility. It was just something I picked up on and thought was strange. It's like, sir,
yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah, I was sitting there like, because I was trying to analyze like what she was saying, and I can't remember. I didn't write it down because I thought it's probably not that important. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it again, honestly, but I feel like she was saying something like, you don't understand why this is happening to me. And I don't know, maybe
it's the content of what she was saying, you think?
Yeah, which I'd have to think about that a little more deeply. But I didn't, like I said, I try to focus on the meat of this episode. And while that part is very important because the cliffhangers in Kodocha are some of the best I've ever seen in anime. Yeah, they're amazing. But I just was like, it was kind of like the Tsuyoshi song about the flower. I was like, I don't know if this is worth really analyzing too deeply.
No, that's fair. It was just something that because I think like this episode obviously is not a Rei feature, but he is very present in it. And I guess when I think about the episode, I don't think about those moments, but they really do maybe foreshadow like what's going to happen in the next episode. So I just thought it was interesting. I have 2 notes on the manga, but I think that's everything I had to say about the episode. Do you have any other thoughts on the episode?
I did have my last note here. I said that I think I prefer the English version of the mom scene.
Really?
It just hit a little closer to home. And I think because, you know, the song she's singing to Akito was something that I heard from my grandparents and my mom. So like I could have that connection there. And I think that's because, you know, I'm not Japanese or from that culture. So I think because that song was in there, I could relate to that more. But in the Japanese version, you know, she's singing something different. So I think that's why I prefer it, because it makes more sense to me as a Western viewer. You know, that song that she's singing has more of an emotional impact on me.
Okay. I'm open to it. I mean, that's how you feel. And that is valid. I don't think I personally like I think I love them both the same. I do think like the use of the Mama's Gonna Buy You a Mockingbird song was a great localization choice. Because sometimes, like, again, there's just, I think that was a good way to get the point across, using language that we already, or like music that we already know, at least in Western, the US, for sure. So I do like them both the same, but
yeah, and I totally get what you're saying, because I'm sure as a Japanese viewer, if you were to watch the English version and you're probably familiar with the song that she's singing to Akito, you'd probably prefer that version too, because you may have a memory of your mom singing that to you. So I don't think one is objectively better than the other. I just think that you know, it just comes down to personal preference, you know?
Oh yeah, and it clearly meant something to you in that version, which is completely understandable, and I appreciate you sharing the why. You ready to dive into some chapter 4, the manga?
Sure, let's do it.
So I really don't have a ton of notes for the manga because it's pretty shot for shot.
The episode. I didn't really write anything down because it was so similar. You know,
I truly only had 2 things. One of them was the appearance of Erika from Passion Girls by Mihono Fuji, in the TV studio, and Obana mentions in one of her author notes panels that her and Miss Fuji were drunk and hanging out one night and drew each other's characters onto their pages, which led me into a rabbit hole of looking to see if I could find a copy of Passion Girls on eBay to buy so I can find Sana in that.
Oh yeah.
But I decided not to do it because they're kind of expensive, and I can't read Japanese. Yeah. But that series ran from 1994 to 96, also in Reborn. And Erika, the character, is a part-time model, so it makes sense that they might be crossing paths or be friends within this universe. But I thought that was extremely funny. Classic Obana. It's like, we got drunk and thought this was funny. And then the other note I had was just a small dialogue shift in the scene, Akito and Sana in the gazebo. where, you know, she's like, hey, do you miss your mom? He's like, I never had a mom, so I can't miss her. And she says back, I think I understand, which to me is foreshadowing for events yet to come, or possibly reference to the fact that like she's never had a dad, so doesn't miss that at all.
Yeah.
But that they don't have a response like that in anime. But to me, that's like one of a very clear foreshadowing of future events that they missed.
Yeah, I think that should have been in the anime. I would have made more sense, but I know, again, I'm not sure what led them to the decision to cut that, whether it was just something about the translation. I don't know.
I don't want to talk smack about an anime director who has obviously directed way more animes than me, but Mr. Akitaro Daichi, I watched an interview with him once where he basically was like, you know, they were like, oh, you know, did you read and reread the manga so that you could like get the feeling of Kodocha while working on the anime? And he's like, I read it once and then threw it to the side. And I felt a little disrespect for Obana sensei because of that comment. And so I think, and I do think that it kind of shows sometimes in the anime that they didn't spend a lot of time with the source material.
Yeah, so and different. It really shows in the later arcs.
Yes, don't even start me.
Which I'm sure we'll have an episode about, you know, I think you know what I'm referring to.
Oh, I think I mentioned which one? There's so many.
Well, you know, like I said, I do enjoy a lot of the filler of Kodocha. I think it's really funny, and I think it maintains that humor that's in all the episodes. But I'm talking about the arc right before junior high. Wink, wink.
Yep, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, because I honestly like the one-off filler episodes. I personally don't mind so much. Sometimes I think they're fun. You know, Akito and Sana doing a stakeout to see if Asako's on a date. Like those are funny. I'm okay with that.
And I do think
long filler arcs that kill me.
Yeah. And I do think that like they build the character. They build on the characters. And I appreciate filler in anime that builds on the characters. Like there's that one arc about that snake guy. I mean, that one was pretty good.
Gosh, yes, I forgot about the photographer guy. Paparazzi guy?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he had like 2 kids.
See, that I didn't mind so much. Yeah, and I think there are lots of kind of one-off, very fun little filler episodes. It's the arcs. You know, it's the Karada family bankruptcy arc. It is that one made me tired. Why are we doing this? That scene with Shimura makes me so upset, and it's for no reason. We'll talk about it another time.
I just, it goes to show you how like disappointing that is when you literally said that, and like I actually felt it like inside of me. I was like, I felt my heart just sinking.
It was so, for why? It's always my question with these long filler arcs. Obviously, the arc right before junior high that you referenced, everybody's favorite. I actually watch one of these days. We are going to meet somebody who is like cool with that arc. We just don't know them yet, but everybody in the Discord is like, we hate this.
The thing is, when I first watched the anime, I had never read the manga. I read it after I finished the anime. And when I got to that arc, I was actually okay with it for a while. There was things in it obviously that happened that I thought was a little odd. But I was like, okay, well, I mean, we're getting some backstory on, you know, what's going on there. And I do appreciate that attempt, I guess. It wasn't perfect, you know. And then when I got to the manga and, you know, I read all of it and then I thought more about that arc, I was like, you know what? That was so unnecessary. And I didn't need it. There's nothing redeemable about it.
I kind of feel that way too. And should we just say it? Are we gonna like Beetlejuice say his name?
Takeshi.
Yes. Take-chan. Yeah, and I almost feel like the problems not necessarily with even like him as a character, you know, the writers were like, it's been a little while. Should we make it weird?
Yeah.
And is my issue with it. Also, why did they kill him? It was so aggressive. Because they wrote themselves into a corner. They knew that they couldn't have him be a recurring character throughout the rest of the series since they made him up. And so they were like, murder is the only answer here.
Yeah.
And it's sad and upsetting for no reason.
And honestly, like, it was so obvious from the beginning who he was. So it was like, I don't know about this. But again, it's like what we were talking about. It was like they went from understanding the source material very well, I think. There's obviously little things you could nitpick, and that's with everything. But after a while, it kind of goes off the rails. And it's like what you were saying, you kind of felt like Obana was being disrespected. Like, I feel like that arc, probably the biggest disrespectful thing that they did. And again, I don't want to, say, like you said, you don't want to crap all over this director, because he has done amazing things. But it's like, sometimes you really got to focus in on the source material, or people are, even the creator, in one of those interviews, he said that eventually Obana stopped communicating with the team, the production team. So, you have to do things that you have to get an understanding of what the fans and what the author want from the series.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just arcs that make me tired. That's one of them. Fuka's blindness in season 2 also is a large capital W, capital T, capital F for me. Like, what?
And again, I didn't care about that arc when I first watched the anime because I hadn't read the manga. Mm-hmm. And I gotta kind of disagree with you there.
Ooh, disagree with me, do it.
Yes. But I didn't really hate that too much. I felt the same about it as I did as how Fuka's character's handled in the manga. I didn't think it made detracted in any way, but I did feel in the Takeshi arc that Sana's character was detracted, which is why I have issues with it. But in that arc, it gets a pass because it didn't really detract from Fuka for me.
Okay, I'm certainly open to that. And I would agree with the big problem for me with the Takeshi Gojo arc is also Sana being very out of character. And obviously, like, grief looks different on everybody and stuff too, but some of those responses were just so out of character to me. Also, I would say the main good things about that arc for me were all of the opportunities that Akito had to save her life, because we put her in life or death situations a lot in that arc.
Yeah, it's just really hard to watch.
Question mark. I don't think our girl would handle things like that personally. But we are so off of episode 6 and chapter 4. It's not even funny.
It's hard. It's hard when you're talking about Kodocha and you feel so much passion. Whether we cut this or not, I personally don't think we should.
I probably won't. We'll leave it in. Why not?
Yeah. Everyone listening out there, I think people will enjoy it no matter what we talk about, as long, as we're talking about, Kodocha. I was going to say, fine.
Our dear friends will enjoy it because they are our friends. I agree. And it's interesting too, because I was thinking about, could we make, more of an effort to be a spoiler-free podcast? And I'm like, because it always ends up, because there's so much foreshadowing in the series, there's a lot of use of dramatic irony, things that we as the viewer know that the characters don't. Mm-hmm. There are so many, trying to think of exactly how I would want to put it, but it's hard to not talk about the series as a whole, both in the manga and in the anime, and to fully analyze those differences. We end up talking about other episodes, and I think that that's something that I'm just okay with now.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I work on my videos for my channel, I always am and honestly I forget to sometimes is to put a spoiler warning, but again, I'm
been out since 1998, so part of me is
and I'm creating this content mainly I want people to learn about the series through my channel, but I also, at the same time, a lot of the content that I'm making and we're making with this podcast, it's for the hardcore fans as well. Mm-hmm. So you know, I feel it's for the podcast. I think that's more for the hardcore fans, because like I personally wouldn't listen to a podcast about something that I don't know that much about. I'd probably start off like actually watching the thing or reading it first, and then I'd listen to a podcast. So I personally feel like, while I do worry about saying spoilers out loud, my feelings of, well, you know, we are making this for people who have seen and read the series and probably know about these things already. So why am I worrying about this, you know? Yeah.
I did add a little disclaimer to my Twitter profile when I had a sweet follower say, I've never seen the second half of the series. And I'm like, I personally cannot tell you to go do an illegal thing on this account, but like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know, as soon as season 2, as soon as Discotek makes an announcement about series 2's Blu-ray release date,
October 24th, y'all.
I'm gonna be pushing people to buy it so hard. I know. If they don't say something on October 24th, it's fall 2022. That's all I'm saying. They said fall 2022. It's fall 2022.
Yeah,
I'm getting very anxious.
Yeah, and I will be honest, if they don't say anything, I'll probably be like, well, it's probably gonna be a while.
I know. It's, you know, July 30th was the last time they said anything, and what they said was like, we're working on it, and that would be fine if they just gave me another we're working on it. It's the silence.
Yeah, and from what I've seen on Twitter, and like I said, I don't watch and buy a lot of anime related material, but from what I can tell on their Twitter, they do put a lot of effort into all the series that they put out. So I personally,
from above, and
they really are.
I love them forever, and I would really love to go back to just being a huge fangirl of them and not feeling like I have to use my Twitter powers of harassing and cyberbullying for evil. But like, until I get an update on this, I'm gonna be a little anxious mess, because this is not the first time that only half of the series has been released. I've been burned before.
Yeah, and I have faith in them. Even if I hear nothing October 24th, I'll be disappointed, yeah, but I still believe that it will happen. I can't say it won't. It just doesn't make any sense, you know, that it wouldn't not happen.
They gotta. It just means that something else is happening or is underfoot. So, and I'm certain that they will share when it is time. That does not mean that I will not be tweeting at them if we do not get an announcement.
Same here.
I will just simply be doing that. Well, is that it for this episode?
I think so. Or do you have any other thoughts on episode 6 or anything else that we talked about today?
Not necessarily. I will say I have in the past said of the Kodocha dub that Jerry Jewell is woefully miscast, because I love him. We know this. I love him. He's an amazing voice actor. I just always thought he was not right for Akito, and he's growing on me. It's happening.
Good. Yay.
It's happening. I'm eating my words. I'm retracting my previous statements. So putting that out there.
Well, I think that's about all I've got. So I guess that ends this episode.
I think so. Okay, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.